Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Manifest with KK. I'm KK and I'm here to talk about all of the amazing manifestations that I've been able to create on my own before I even found them on YouTube. So today I'm going to be talking to you about manifesting my current dream apartment, and I've been living in this apartment for 4 years. This apartment I could not have even imagined. It was better than what I could have imagined. But before I get into the success story, if you are liking my channel, if you're liking my content, I would really appreciate if you could just take a moment to like this video or share it with somebody you care about who might be going through a little bit of a difficult time and just needs a little bit of motivation. And a lot of my stories will be about how I've manifested before all of this LOA, law of assumption type of content was pushed out on YouTube and Reddit and all of these forums and whatnot, and how we really do need to open up our minds and our hearts and our intuition and trusting ourselves to make a decision. Because I think the theme that you will see throughout most of my videos is that I decided and I stuck with that decision and I let my intuition guide me as well. And so if you're not open to this message, that's okay. Maybe replay it again and again until you feel like you're resonating with this message, because this message is not for everybody, and that's okay. So when I started this journey of manifestation, which was many, many years ago, I didn't go onto YouTube and I didn't look for, how to do this or how to do this or how to manifest in 1 minute. I didn't look for these things. I really got clear on what I wanted. And so this was back before COVID. I knew back before Corona, back before 2020, I wanted to move out of my previous apartment. And at the time, I was feeling the pull, feeling the nudge that I wanted to move that summer of 2020. However, everything kind of was on lockdown, and the way that my contract and the payments and everything, it just wasn't possible for me to do that. Everything was kind of frozen, so nobody could really move. And one of the things that I was doing, I had to kind of just suck it up and put up with another year of where I was living. So how it works here in Dubai is you rent your apartment for a full year, and because I work as an educator, I get a housing allowance and they pay for my housing, and you have to give a 3-month notice. It's a whole process. It's not like the US or where I grew up. So essentially, it got to a point where they weren't allowing us to move. They were telling us that we had to stay where we were living. Everything was on lockdown. Things were just really weird at that time. And that was a year where I was like, okay, I'm gonna suck it up. I'm gonna do it for 1 more year, save money, and manifest or put out there what I want. And, when it was getting time to put myself out there. So again, I'm missing so many details. I'm just too excited to tell you this story. Okay, so what had happened was during this time, I was going back and forth with a decision. And so I was in that in between, like, should I stay in my apartment? I'm comfortable. I don't have to worry about going and looking. And living in Dubai, I've always had housing provided for me. And because I've always had housing provided me, I never had to deal with real estate agents and rent checks and deposits and all of that. Everything was always dealt for me and handled for me, which was really nice for the majority of my, for 7 years of living in the country. So I never had to deal with this, and I was a bit scared to take that leap. But I was like, I just hate where I'm living. It's so ghetto. And like at first I loved it, but it got to a point where I was like, the neighborhood's gone downhill. It's noisy. It's just, I'm ready for a change. I'm ready to upgrade, that feeling of like, I'm just feeling that pull, that nudge, that inspired action. So I was looking online, looking in different areas that, I thought I wanted to live, but it wasn't really resonating with me. And then I got a nudge to look in an area that I didn't think about looking. And this area was a bit far from where I was living, but it was central. And one of the criteria that I wanted was to have a view of water, specifically the ocean. But I was willing to compromise and look for like a lake view or a canal view or something like that. But I wanted a water view. That was super duper important to me. And another thing that I wrote down was I wanted to have all the appliances already in the apartment. And so I wanted to, because here sometimes it's not provided, like a fridge or dishwasher or stove or washing machine. Like these things sometimes don't get provided and you have to buy it yourself. So it was really important to have it already provided in the apartment, and the ocean view. These were like my two criteria, and I had a budget of how much I wanted to spend because I was given a housing allowance. I didn't want to exceed that housing allowance. And so I would literally just, in the midst of it, I would guess you could call it spiral, but I had my meltdowns. I was hating life. I was like, fuck, I don't want to live in this apartment anymore. I hate it. And I would avoid going home. And I just really didn't like living at home, and I would just be there as little as possible. But when I was there, I would look out my current view and I would see a building right across the road, and I can see, it was like office building. And I can see around the building were other buildings in the sun setting. So the buildings block the sunset colors. And so I was like, I really can't wait to have a place where I have a sunset view. And I would just get into like a calm, relaxed state, and I would just sit on the edge of my bed looking out that, window. It was floor to ceiling windows, and I would look out and I would just, just say my next place is going to have this. This is a non-negotiable. Like I made that decision. This is what I want, and I'm not settling for anything else. And this is all I wanted for months. Because I knew I had to write out the lease, and I knew that I wasn't able to move or get out the lease any earlier. So all that time I was looking for places that had all the appliances, had an ocean view or water view, and ideally a sunset view. That was something I really wanted. And so I decided to go look in an area of Dubai that I had not considered. And I went and I was looking at this brand new tower. And the first apartment that I saw in the building was on the 19th floor. And it was a bit like, I didn't get the feel. Like everybody kept saying like, you're going to know when you see it. You're going to know when you found your apartment. You just know. And I was like, okay, I don't really, whatever. So I went back to the same building, but it was a different agent who had a different apartment on a different floor. And it was a much higher floor. And as soon as I walked up to it, I was like, this is my apartment. I just knew. And when I walked in, I knew that it was my apartment. The view is not only of water, it's like the full Arabian Sea with the world islands and everything, and just gorgeous. And it doesn't look at any buildings. And to be honest, I have the most incredible sunset views almost every single day. And I have all the appliances built in. I didn't have to buy anything. I'm the first person to live in this flat or this apartment. And it was negotiated a couple thousand dirhams less than what I wanted to pay when I first moved in. And it really became my dream apartment, and I got to decorate it. I would look at photos on Pinterest or just look up things on Instagram, and I would find things that I really wanted to buy because I got rid of all the old furniture. It was all used and just like bought from like IKEA, and nothing wrong with that, but like it was all like secondhand stuff, right? Like I wanted a fresh start, and this apartment was like the most expensive apartment I have ever lived in. And I was able to afford it, and it felt like so luxury. I almost didn't even feel worthy of this apartment when I first moved into it. I almost felt like uncomfortable living in such a nice place because I had never been granted that opportunity. I felt like my self-worth and concept was low. I remember like feeling uncomfortable, like I wasn't worthy to live in such a nice place. But after some time, like obviously now I am worthy, and I created this. I couldn't have made this up. And at the time I was going to a intuitive healer guided person, a mentor, and she would read cards and stuff. And one of the things that I asked was, am I going to find an apartment? And these are the requirements. She goes, the view that you're going to get is going to be better than anything you can imagine. It's going to be like, wow. And I think about that comment, and I think about where I live, and I think about every time I look out the window here, I just think like, wow, like she was right. And my desires came true. My desires happened to come to fruition, and I didn't know all the steps. I didn't know all the how. I just took what we call inspired action, and I didn't even know I was taking inspired action, but I was just doing the thing. And I think about that process, and I just look back and I'm just like, I got what I wanted, and nothing got in my way. I made that decision, that very clear decision of what I wanted, and I'm so grateful for what I have. And now I'm like manifesting bigger things around my living spaces and things like that. And so if you're listening to this, and you're watching all these videos and you're watching all these techniques, like, let me just remind you, I didn't go onto YouTube and all these things. Like, of course, I had some foundation of law of assumption, law of attraction, visualization, or looking at pictures, or going to certain neighborhoods and looking around the neighborhoods to get a feel for where I wanted to live and daydream. I'm a big daydreamer, and that's really important. That's how a lot of my manifestations have come to fruition, just daydreaming about what I wanted and replaying those scenes over and over in my head, or getting somewhat of a clear idea. And I didn't have all the images, don't get me wrong. And so a lot of you like to know a timeline of how quickly this all manifested, but I would say, because I was locked into a contract at my old apartment, I needed to ride out quite a bit of time before I could move into my new apartment. So when it came time, the last 3 months of me living in my old apartment, that's when you have to give a notice to say I'm leaving. And that leap was like liberating, because I knew I wanted to leave, but I was also scared at the same time. But when I made the decision to give up my old apartment and say I'm gonna look for my own thing, that's when the real work, I guess, the real work, or the real trust in the process happened. And I'm glad I took that leap. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about like trusting my desires, trusting my dreams and my intuition. And you just have to lean into that. Like, that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. And my way, my technique is not going to be your technique, but I just want you to know that you do have these beautiful powers inside of you. And yes, there were times I wavered. There were times where I just wanted to give up. There were times where I just didn't think it would happen for me, and I wasn't finding what I was looking for, but I stuck to it. And when it came down to it, I found something that led me to where I was. Like, I took all the steps, I took all the inspired actions, the nudges, the suggestions, people helped me. And I think about all of that, all of the people that kind of gave me the advice back then. And it was all meant to happen. It was all the part of the unfolding that we call. And it was just going through the motions, and I just couldn't be more grateful. And now I'm manifesting my next place and, leveling up from here. And it's all about those incremental upgrades that we give ourselves, because once we reach a certain standard, we want to maintain it or dream bigger. And I know that if it's possible for me, like, you guys, I'll tell you my story in another video, but if it's possible for somebody like me, it's certainly possible for somebody like you. So I hope this story resonated with you, or I hope your mind and soul was open to hearing this message about manifestation and my success. And I hope it really inspires you. And if it does resonate with you, please leave a comment down below or leave me some feedback. And I would love to hear how this video inspired you. So all the best, and catch you guys on the next video.